Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Burchell, and I am co-author of Make Work Healthy with my colleague, John Ryan. And we're here today to talk about workplace health and the importance of it. And John, you said something to me recently that really stopped me in my tracks. You said to me, "Hey, Michael, I believe well-being is dead." We co-authored a book together on well-being. So, what do you mean by that?
It's a good starting point, isn't it?
It
I
is.
suppose I'd go one step further. If employee well-being isn't dead, we should kill it. Uh, so and I know there's a whole industry built around it.
Mhm.
And it probably seems a bit of a strange thing to say, but let me just explain what I mean. When I'm talking to CEOs all over the globe, and I'm asking them about employee well-being. And they're saying all the right stuff, Michael. They're saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's really important, and we should do it." And um, hot apple pie and motherhood, or some phrase like that. They kind of go hand in hand. And then you actually have the private conversation, and you say, "So tell me,
Mhm.
do you think it makes any difference with regard to the results of the organization?" And they go,
Mhm.
"No, no, not really." So basically, what it is, employee well-being is seen as something that's soft, maybe fluffy. It's very much discretionary, and
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think if times get tighter, even tighter than they are right now, it's going to be one of the first things to fall by the wayside, because
Sure.
it's seen as a perk and it's seen as a benefit, one of the many benefits that organizations put out there so that they look good on Instagram and they can attract people into their
Yeah.
workplace.
Right.
But fundamentally, it's seen as a cost.
Hmm.
And I think that's the very worst place that
Right.
you want to be sitting with this at the moment, because that's completely misunderstood. And I think it's interesting. One of your former employers, McKinsey,
Hmm.
they shared a really interesting report, and I was looking at all the organizations and what they do and their share price and the results, and they found that the organizations that really take a different approach to workforce health, and not just well-being now, but this is a
Hmm.
broader definition, are ones that are winning when it comes to share performance. And I think
Hmm.
that's pretty important to say. But what I'd love the world to do, as I say, is kind of ditch employee well-being and
Hmm.
replace it with performance. And the
Okay.
reason I say that, Michael, is because it kind of really frustrates me. I kind of get this idea that organizational leaders and in general, there's a sense that there's a big trade-off. That
Yes.
on one side you've got employee well-being, and on the other side you've got performance. So if you're going to go easy on people as such, and provide them with desk yoga or time for a
Right.
mental health lecture, and the like, well, then performance and productivity are going to drop, right?
Hmm.
And that to me is false, right? I
Right.
don't believe in
Right.
it, right? So
Okay.
because I don't believe that you or anybody else in this world actually feels their best and the most vital when they're doing absolutely nothing. The time, and you can tell me if I'm right here, Michael, right? But the time I think people feel healthiest and best and most vital and are really thriving is the time that they're doing something, but
Hmm.
doing something that actually gives them a sense of purpose
That
and
matters.
meaning, and that there's a passion. And I think this word is again a word that's lost its meaning.
Yep.
People think, oh, what are you passionate about? As in, like, what do you like? Right? That's
Right.
not what passion is. Right? The passion of Jesus Christ is the ultimate payment. Basically, you've got a huge challenge ahead of you, but
Hmm.
it's so important that you do this, and the sense of achievement and meaning, and purpose that you get from
Yeah.
that delivers
Yeah.
something really special to you. Now, if you can do that while utilizing all your skills and talents,
Hmm.
that's really going to play into you, because the time that you are utilizing, your brain power in the right way, your
Yes.
skills, your
Yes.
talents, and all that is really important. Because, like, Michael, for me, I can do maths, but please don't put me in a job that requires me to do maths all the time, because that's not where my strengths lie.
Right.
Whereas if you find a job that gives me purpose and passion and that utilizes all my strengths, fantastic. Top that with leadership that actually inspires me to do something really
Hmm.
fantastic, a
Hmm.
culture that I actually just feel I fit naturally into, and it allows me to exercise all of my abilities and my skills to do the
Okay.
best performance possible. And if the values of the organization actually reflect mine, okay, I
Hmm.
find a deep
Hmm.
sense of coherence, and that's when I hit flow. And
Mm.
flow is the ultimate level of high performance, as Mihai Csikszentmihalyi showed us many years ago. And that's when I end up the day absolutely tired. But that tiredness is a tiredness that comes from exhaustion from doing a fantastic job
What you
and
love.
achieving something really worthwhile.
Hmm.
That's when I feel healthiest. That's when
Hmm.
I feel best. That's when I'm performing.
Mm.
So I believe we have this, we need to radically shift the conversation away from employee well-being seen as a nice little benefit
Okay.
to
Yes.
something that really is a driver of organizational performance and individual performance. To me, that's the big conversation that needs to happen.
So how did we get into this place where we're focused on well-being apps and Fitbits and the rest of it, right? And so what I hear you saying is that we have missed part of the picture. Like maybe they have some role, but we've missed the fundamental job of performance, are really focused on coherence, as you mentioned. So how do we get ourselves into this place to begin with, that you're saying
Yeah.
that well-being is dead?
But it's like many of these things, Michael. You ask yourself, what are the systems and processes that aren't working
Hmm.
in organizational in that context? And you look at the performance management systems. You know, and you've seen this all over the globe, that performance management systems, 99% of them don't work. The manager hates implementing
Yep,
them. The employee hates getting them.
a
They
thousand
both
percent.
sort of shun it and they see it as a process and an exercise that
Yep.
they have to go through. Is it effective? Absolutely not. Do we continue with it? Yes, we do. And
Hmm.
in some cases, it's actually anti-talent because you have these this
Mm.
wonderful force distribution, which means you've got a team of 10 people. Just say you've brought a brilliant team of 10 people together and they're all top performers, right? You
Hmm.
now have to choose two of them to be sort of strike down and
Sure.
say you're not good enough, and two
Yes.
to get a real bonus.
Yep.
So what you've got to do, if you are a really smart, talented person, is make sure to get onto a team of people who aren't smart and who aren't performing well. That's the only way
Right.
you're going to get your bonus. So now the systems and processes that we put in place are actually doing the exact opposite of what you want to
Mm-hmm.
actually achieve
Hmm.
if it's high performance that you want in
Hmm.
your organization.
Hmm.
So we're doing these things and we're putting these things in place with a mistaken view that actually it's really good to do this stuff for employees. And yeah, you can spoon feed them a little bit and all
Hmm.
that, but at the end of the day, this isn't what's going to make the
Right.
difference. What
Right.
really matters is show me how to perform. You know
Hmm.
all the sports teams in the world. They
Yes.
have their trackers on, they're getting the
Yep.
data from them, they're making sure that they're ready to go. And the best way to feel healthy is actually to win.
So what role does kind of our traditional thinking around wellness? So sleep, diet, exercise, the rest of that, mental attention. How does that then sit in this new way of thinking about, well, actually, it's not about, well-being. It is about performance and how we think about creating a healthy organization.
Yeah. Well, so there's two things. The only two things that matter in this game is healthy organization and healthy people,
Okay.
right? So what you're talking about there is the output, my output, which will be the input of the
Hmm.
organization. Okay. So
Hmm.
if I come to work and if I haven't slept well, I might get away with it one day, right? But if
Yes.
that lack of sleep is maybe 3 days, well,
Hmm.
now my performance drops. Plain and simply, it doesn't matter who you are. That's what happens. You know, you travel the world, Michael.
Yes.
When your circadian rhythm is out of gear, you don't, you can't perform. You're
Right.
not sharp. And cognitive load is everything nowadays, right? So our
That's right.
capacity to perform is driven by certain things, and sleep is one. Energy is the second one. You can't just do things if you don't have the
Right.
energy to do it. And your ability to have energy at the right times of
Hmm.
the day is
Yep.
highly related to your recovery regime. And I say to people, what's your recovery routine? And they
Yep.
go, What? And, they think it's a bottle of wine on a Friday night after the madness of the week. It's
Hmm.
not. It's
Hmm.
multiple moments of recovery during the day. Your diet, the food you're actually putting in you, absolutely critically important. It's the fuel that fuels high performance
Right.
all the way through. So all of these factors are factors that really matter in terms of you actually turning up to a workplace
Hmm.
ready to go.
Hmm. So then let me ask you, so if leaders are getting it wrong, what's the right way to think about performance more specifically? Like how do you
Well,
frame out what does performance look like?
but honestly, it starts with the leaders, because
Okay.
what we actually find from turning up and working with leaders, um, number one, you get sort of the wearables are available nowadays, which is
Yep.
great, and most of the people at that C-suite level are actually have wearables, and you
Hmm.
get the data, and the data is really really clear. Most of them aren't sleeping enough, and the quality of the sleep is awful.
It's
The
awful.
second thing is heart rate variability, right? You
Hmm.
can actually, I think this is fascinating, Michael. You don't have to be told when the board meeting is during that month. You can actually see it through the heart rate variability. And it's not of the day of the board
Hmm.
meeting, it's the day before the board meeting,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And
Right.
then recovery. The recovery just simply isn't happening. So what you've got is a world, and you remember this, Michael. 10 years ago, they used the VUCA concept
Yes. I was
from
going to ask you
I
about
think
this.
the
Yes.
army and the like, and it used to be the
Yep.
coolest thing to turn up and talk about VUCA. And we thought things were volatile and uncertain and
Hmm.
complex and ambiguous back then. We're now living in steroid land, VUCA
Hmm.
steroid land. It's 10x,
Yes.
right? Nobody knows
Yes.
what's going on. And the leaders are in this absolutely maelstrom.
Hmm.
And as you see, actually, some of them are actually stepping down because they're not ready for the fight. They don't understand AI and they're kind of going, I don't know, this world is all changing.
Yeah.
The Coca-Cola one step down. There's loads of them who are just sort of saying,
Right.
I don't know what's going on, right? So they themselves need to be really, really healthy, and
Hmm.
many of them aren't. So they're sacrificing their own health, trying to work long hours to, get the business
Yep.
back on track.
Yep.
What they have to understand is your ability to be healthy is number one. Number
Hmm.
two, they've got to be role models for the whole organization because everybody is looking at them
Hmm.
in terms of how they're running the show. So, we talk about healthy behaviors of the
Yep.
leadership team. I'm not talking about, them jumping on a bike at the weekend and taking a picture of themselves in Lycra. Nobody wants to see that, right? But what I'm talking about is what is the worst? What is the
Hmm.
worst behavior they're willing to accept around that
Hmm.
organization? And it doesn't matter if it's the most talented person in the organization. If they're acting inconsistently with the values of that organization, they have to go, plain
Yeah.
and simple.
Yeah.
You can't have that, okay? So it's
Hmm.
really, really
Hmm.
important the role that the managers and the leaders have in terms of the organization and how they're driving it forward. And
Yeah.
they've got to understand, because I know from talking to them, you ask them, so tell me, is profit important to you? They go, absolutely. So do you have a number for that? And they go, yep, absolutely. EBITDA, yeah, great. Turnover, profit, productivity, all those things. And they have numbers for them all. And then you go, so what about the health of the workforce? Is that important? And they go, absolutely. And you go, so have you got a number for that?
Mm.
No.
No.
So that's really, really dangerous because what they're operating on is historic data, what we call
Hmm.
lag data. What they
Hmm.
need to be operating with is lead data.
Dynamic
Lead
data.
data tells you where it's going in the future. It's
Hmm.
predicting the future based on good evidence.
Hmm.
And it's giving you time, which
Hmm.
is something that we don't have, but time to fix the problem before the potential problems
Yep.
and the results of that are seen in the business. So that's really important that you've got an opportunity here to get lead data so that you can actually be a proper leader for that organization. So having your finger on the pulse means you got to have data, you got to have evidence, and you've got to be able to
Mm.
respond to the biggest presenting needs of your business. Not generic well-being sort of let's roll this
Mm.
out because it's on LinkedIn. Good luck. The days of that are gone.
Yeah. This lead data is a really important point, and you have shared with me before. I mean, you've done a lot of consulting in lots of multinational organizations around the world, and so you've also talked about kind of the invisible barriers that happen in organizations like broken systems, and you just mentioned about kind of performance metrics, right? Like how people are assessing, who's on that. that curve and the lack of lead data. Are there other things that you think are invisible barriers in organizations that are really impacting how people are thinking about performance rather than kind of getting it confused with other kind of softer or not useful data points or
Well,
metrics?
the next layer down after the leaders are the managers in the
Yeah.
organization. And like I was talking to somebody there who had data. I can't share who it was, but the research data they had said that many people admitted, actually 60% of people who were surveyed admitted that they actually dreamt about killing their manager. Like, this is the kind of relationships that, our
That's not a
managers
good sign.
our managers are supposed to be, motivating us in a way,
Right.
but at least they're supposed to be giving us feedback that's helping us to perform even better. But actually, many of them are actually the biggest block to our performance. Some say your manager has a bigger effect on your well-being than your doctor,
Mm.
because that it's a pretty important
Yes.
role. So the question is, most organizations, if you talk to them and you say, so has the role of a manager changed, like with AI been implemented through the organization with all the changes over the years? And they go, absolutely. And you go, so have the job descriptions changed? No.
No, not really.
Okay. The expectations, have you discussed that?
Yes.
And so you're left with these people trying to operate in a whole new world. And I'm seeing organizations doing kind of mad things. Like one organization, they 50% of the bonus now for a manager actually is directly related to the health scores of the team.
Wow.
So when that manager says, "How are you, everybody?" they
Hmm.
actually really
Hmm.
care about the answer because it
Hmm.
affects them. Another organization I found fascinating, they said, because they've got so many Gen Zs coming into the organization, they said the expectations of Gen Zs in terms of what their manager is going to deliver is huge. They said they now want their managers to be psychologists. And I said, yeah, it's mad. And they said, no, no, no. We know that. So what we did was we've trained our managers to be psychologists. So they've actually taken this seriously now. They're not qualified psychologists, but they've given
Right.
them a lot of tools to understand what they need to be doing to connect differently with their people and to drive
Mm-hmm.
performance. And Michael, so much of the information is out there around what it takes to perform. And
Right.
unfortunately, just lots of people have no clue. Even I mentioned Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow,
Yeah.
which is the highest level of high performance. And loads of people have no idea what you're talking about when you talk about flow.
Right.
And they
Right.
don't understand it's that like the intensity that you need to get to. And basically it's just the big thing, Michael, nowadays, right? You can only get into flow if you're 100%
100%.
intensity and focused.
Yes.
And
Yes.
what do people not have nowadays? Focus.
Focus.
Their attention is
Yeah.
gone. It's
Yeah.
like goldfish, right?
Right.
And social media has completely screwed with the heads of people. They
Yes.
just expect everything to happen in 3 seconds. And if they don't, we flick on to something else. Well,
Hmm.
funnily enough, that's not when you're going to do your best work, not 3 seconds.
Right.
It might just take a little bit longer than that. So to understand that, you have to kind of rewire the brain. And I worry about the people who have been born into this world of
Hmm.
social media with those social media companies have used every psychology
Mm.
possible to make sure that the social media is completely addictive. And of course, social media is free, but the price we're paying for it is absolutely huge.
Huge.
And I think people are going to wake up to that pretty, pretty soon.
Hmm. It seems like what you're saying too is that organizations want to get a lot of done. They want to perform, they want to have high performance, but there's so much friction that they're creating by kind of pulling people in lots of different directions, and managers are not helping. So managers are putting all these blocks in the way, and like social media, whether it's social media or something like social media, they're creating all these spaces where people are their attention is, and their focus is being pulled. And so it's not coherent. It doesn't make sense. And so they don't have a sense of flow. They don't have coherence, right?
Yeah. And of
That's
course,
incredible.
to me, this is probably controversial, but one of the signs to me is that people don't want to go into the workplace because they don't find it effective.
Right.
And, okay, they could sort of say, hey, it makes more sense for me to, work from at home because I save on the commute and the
Mhm.
time and the like. And I,
Mhm.
I get all that, right? And in some cases, it suits the flexibility so that you can do other stuff at the same time. However, The challenge I set to organizations is make your workplace so compelling that if it's like there's a party on and I'm missing that party. It's, FOMO is
FOMO,
there.
right?
Do people feel that when
Yep.
they don't go
Yep.
into the workplace? And people have to understand that the workplace, work is social. It's a
Yes.
social thing, and it's really important because we jump off each other, we get ideas, we spark, and we learn. Tacit knowledge, is flowing both
Yes.
ways, and hopefully we're contributing to a brilliant culture. And I
Right.
just find it fascinating talking to people who are involved in the design of
Mm.
workplaces now. In the old days, so the old days, probably last year, right? Um, they actually
Mhm.
built workplaces so that your division, your team, your department would have its own little coffee area so you
Yeah.
could go to.
Right.
Now they're ripping those all out and they're building a little mini town in the
In
center
the
of the
center.
workplace because they want
Hmm.
everybody to come. They want to get rid of
Hmm.
these silos. They want interaction. They want people to move physically.
Yeah.
The world is changing at a ridiculous pace. And how we're responding, I know there's, nudges now. Remember in the old days, you used to get a nudge to tell you to get up off your seat because you've been sitting too long. Now people are interacting so much with AI that they're actually getting a nudge to tell them to go and talk to a real person.
Mm. Mm.
Like that's mad. And
Yeah.
remember, AI is taking all those boring tasks that used to allow us replenish our energy and recover, but
Hmm.
that's all gone. So what we're left with now is the really tough work, the
Hmm.
brain stuff. The cognitive load is so, so intense. So
Yes.
if we don't understand mentally how we can manage that, we're we're not going to be performing, Michael.
Right. Right.
Have I given you too much?
And that's where CEOs come back to this picture, right? Because CEOs are need to be focused on performance. And
Mhm.
what you're saying is that actually, if that's what they're, I guess my question for you is like, what are CEOs trying to pay attention to here when they think about performance? And how do we need to think differently about including what you're talking about here in that frame?
Hmm. Well, number one, what we've got is in most organizations is a bunch of initiatives going on with owners of those initiatives, and they all come and report on their different areas.
Yeah.
We've got to get away from that, and basically everybody's got to be interested. I know one organization actually changed the bonus system for their C-suite, and it wasn't based on the individual's section and how it performed. It was an overall one. So therefore, if I'm sitting and, maybe Michael, your section is struggling. Previously, I was kind of going, well, that's not my section. So who
Exactly.
cares? But now suddenly I'm actually going, hold on a second. I'm going to have to sort out Michael and help
Hmm.
him to sort out
Hmm.
his problems,
Hmm.
even if that
Hmm.
means me
Hmm.
giving you some resources or the like. That's really important, because what we're seeing, honestly, is resourcing is a big issue in organizations. People are, reporting that they're burnt out because they just don't have the resources to do the job. And in hospital environments, this is crazy. You can't control who's
Yes.
coming into the A&E if there's a big accident or something. But the
Right.
question is, can you have a system that's actually identifying we have a pinch point? We have a pressure zone. We need to share resources and get people in there. Because what happens if you don't do that? The people who are there trying to do the
Hmm.
job will
Hmm.
actually get sick, and
Hmm.
that means that section gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And that's the piece that I don't know if I've ever shared with you, but there's a brilliant engineering professor, and he was showing his students. They were asked to build these model bridges,
Okay.
and you're sort of saying, "Oh, that's really interesting. Those bridges look lovely." But he was saying, "No, no, no. But that's not the point. What I want to know is what's the load bearing capacity of that structure." And that's the way you've got to think about your
Mm.
workplace, right? You've designed it in a particular way. What is the load bearing capacity of it? And what
Mm.
he clearly showed was if you spread the weight across the physical structure, you have some chance, right? But
Hmm.
if that weight gets loaded in particular points, so if there's pressure points in your organization, the
Right.
whole thing collapses. Now, the
Hmm.
only chance you have is to identify that really quickly before it collapses and go underneath the structure and provide
Build
supports
the
and put
foundation
them in.
for it.
So those supports have to be really specific, tailored to exactly where that pressure point is so that you can lift it. But as you know, Bridges
Huh.
will actually have these pressure gauges on them. They're
Yes.
identifying the stresses, the strains, the pressures, all of the things that matter, and the effects of wind and all that. Because
Hmm.
they're watching, because they're not leaving it up to chance. They're not
Right.
just checking that once a year, Michael. They're
Right.
getting that data flow on a constant basis, and that's what's really important for organizational leaders, that they have a
Hmm.
data flow, that they're
Yep.
not relying on
Mhm.
a once yearly check in. Not at all. It's
Okay.
got to be constant feedback, and they've got to move fast and respond quickly if they want to win in this game of, organizational performance.
Performance. So if I'm a CEO,
Yeah.
where do I even start? What does this look like? How do I
Well,
take it? What's the first step?
You start with you, right? So
Okay.
number one, you've got to buy into the philosophy, and you've got to see the link between health and performance. So you've got to sort of say, okay, I get it. If I want
And not
performance,
well-being. You're talking about health,
I'm talking about health.
organizational health, individual health, and its
Yeah.
linked to
And
performance.
let me be clear about that. So I think most people get what health means on an individual basis, right? I've got to be vital. I've got to be sleeping. I've got to be eating the right food. I've got to be fit. I've got to be all of those, the energy piece. I've
Mhm.
got to be able to turn up and deliver on a constant basis. My finances need to be actually in order, because they hugely affect. I mean, Michael, actually, just on that individual piece, and don't let me go off this, but
Yeah.
it's just the data is so clear. We ask organizations just a demographic question, identify for us your own level of health, right? From really good health to really poor health, right? And then we do a correlation to the 66 other statements that relate to their view of leadership, their mental capacity, their demands, the ability to take on more work, all of those things, social connections, the works.
Hmm.
There is a complete correlation. As the person's health declines, so do all of those
Hmm.
figures. Procter
Hmm.
and Gamble did a great piece. They paid for
Hmm.
everybody to get a health check. A lot of organizations do that, but because Procter and Gamble in Latin America had such high
Hmm.
trust levels between them and the employees gave their personal medical data to the organization. They layered on top of that the survey results, the perception, and they
Yep.
layered on top of that the performance data for every single team.
Hmm.
And the healthiest team were the highest performing teams.
Hmm.
So I mean, like, it has face validity, but when you see the data
Right.
behind it, you kind
Right.
of go, like, if leaders aren't turning around and going, health and performance go hand in hand, I would worry. So once you get
Hmm.
that right, then you turn to the health of the organization, and you say, so what does that mean? Well, this is about a healthy culture.
Hmm.
So when I come into this organization, is it easier to be healthy or not? Or is this organization actually going to cause me a problem? Is there a
Hmm.
lack of clarity around what job I'm doing? Who am I reporting to? What about the systems that are, because this drives people crazy when the systems and the processes, the tech, oh, that just kind of gets in the way. They complain about the systems and the processes, and there's admin things that just drive them crazy. So
Hmm.
you've got to have the systems that back this up. You've got to have the practices. You've got to have the acceptable behaviors. You've got to have that cascade of every single, touch point I have with the organization actually has to be
Hmm.
making my job easier so that I can deliver that high performance. And that's really important. So that healthy culture, healthy organization, healthy practices, healthy
Yep.
behaviors all lead to healthy profits.
Hmm. Hmm. You shared with me kind of a model before that I would love for you to maybe just walk through for a second. You talked about drivers kind of create conditions which kind of lead to outcomes, which manage risk, which then focuses on execution. I think that was kind of the
Yeah.
framing of it. But
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
could
I mean,
maybe
like,
walk through kind of your thinking about that, because I think it actually relates to what you're talking about here and what CEOs need to be attentive to.
yeah, I suppose, it's trying to understand, like, the inputs and the outputs of the system, and too many things are all about just kind of. I was trying to give an example of this. You sort of say, if you're an orange producer or
Yeah.
something, and you're kind of just, all you're deciding on is, oh, that orange looks really nice, and you're kind of going like, well, it's a little bit late if the orange actually doesn't look great. And I'll go, where did it go wrong? So I'm more interested in going right back to sort of saying, have we got the right seeds that we're
Hmm.
planting in the ground? Have we prepared the ground properly so that it's conducive to people growing and
Hmm.
developing good things? Are there really brilliantly trained farmers who are actually nurturing this actual plant to tree to grow
Yeah.
and produce. What about the fertilizer you're putting in there? What about the hydration system, the water, and all those? So you're looking at all of these things. I don't think anybody would doubt. You'll know very clearly early on whether or not we're going to have beautiful oranges, and the man from Del Monte will give the fingers up and say, "This is fantastic." So you're looking at these. So the inputs of this are talking about that
Yeah.
sleep, all those factors that mean that you're actually vital and you're ready to go in terms of this. And so then we're talking about the drivers, and this is where we do kind of
Mm.
gap analysis. We've
Hmm.
identified what are the eight key drivers of organizational performance, and
Mm.
you know one of those is the individual's capacity to deliver. So that it's really important when you're bringing back this data to the organization. It's fascinating because the leaders often go, "Hey, John, I get it over here, right? This about the healthy organization, the culture, the systems, the processes. That's on me, right? I get that." But
Hmm.
this stuff about the individual, you know, if their relationships are in a mess, if their finances are awful, if they're eating all the wrong food, that's not my responsibility. And you go, you're absolutely right. It's not your responsibility, but it should be your concern because they're the people that you're relying on to turn up and do a brilliant day's work. And that all
Right.
comes together to make a performing organization output brilliant. Now, if that bit isn't working, you need to jump in there and you need to put in those
Yes.
supports,
Yes.
right? Mitigate any of the issues and help those people to become better at their role and their job. And
Right.
that's what it's about. So that's really important. So then the organizational system, you have to just get feedback constantly to know, is it working? Are
Yes.
there things here in this organization? Are there bullies in this organization? Is it
Yeah.
a psychologically safe place where people feel that they can actually speak up and say and call out when something's going wrong? Or are they afraid to do
Mm.
that and they keep stum? And then suddenly something goes wrong and people say, well, why didn't anybody speak up? Right.
Right.
So things like that psychological safety is really, really important. And then that last piece that all too often people don't talk about enough is risk and
Mm.
the management of risk. And this is why, like, I find it fascinating that boards for organizations, they should be all over this stuff because,
Yes.
like, they're supposed to be managing, you know, the risk piece of this. They're not even looking at this. Their eyes are somewhere else. Whereas this is
Hmm.
where it's at.
Hmm.
It's so important that you're able to turn around and actually have your finger on the pulse. I was interviewing the CEO of Carlsberg
Okay.
in Copenhagen, and it was fascinating listening to him because he was talking about the organizational heartbeat and
Huh.
and that ability to have your finger on the heartbeat of what's
Hmm.
happening in the organization
Hmm.
so that
Hmm.
you can respond just like that. So it's really important, you know, energy resilience of the actual system that you've
Yes.
built. And
Yeah.
that's a word that I think, you know, people have completely wrong. Resilience is seen, I don't know if you know this, Michael, but you know, it's seen as I hit you 9 times and you still get up number 10. Aren't you wonderful? I my advice is stay down,
Uh,
right? Because you're going to get hit again, right? I think people need to think completely
wise.
different about resilience of the system. And you know, a system, you don't know whether a system is up to it unless it's been tested. It's
Right.
like, you know, getting hackers in to try and hack your system to see is it any good. So it's really important that people think about resilience as
Mhm.
building an architecture, like a network around yourself, where if that horrible time comes that you're, you know, under chronic stress, because stress, by the way, is okay.
Mhm.
Stress is good. It prepares us for, you know, high performance.
Yeah.
But it's when it becomes chronic that that's a problem, right? And
Yep.
chronic means it's over our capacity to deliver on it. The intensity is too great and the duration is too long. That's problematic, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
it's really important that you've got a build this network around you of support that you
Mhm.
can call on at any time. That's
Mhm.
resilience.
Mhm.
But also, you need to be part of other people's resilience. So they need to know that you'll be there for them too. And the
Yes.
organization needs to be part of yours. But for them to
Mhm.
be able to respond, they have to have a flow of data that gets them that finger on the
Mhm.
pulse, that organizational heartbeat, so that they can
Yes.
see, I know where the problem is. I'm going to jump in with targeted precision, not generic, not vanilla, not rolling out another policy.
Another engagement
It's going to matter.
survey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. It's really interesting because I think that a lot of organizations focus on system uptime, websites, computer systems, dashboards, equipment, but they don't really attend to people uptime. And what you're
Yeah.
talking about is, are you clear about your people uptime as much as you are about your system uptime, right? Kind of not just kind of the resources and tools and technology, right? But also the people uptime. And so do you understand, therefore, what's the friction, what's getting in the way of that? And that is actually robbing you of performance.
Yeah.
And do you have data around that? Really, really
Yeah.
important data.
It's funny, like,
So,
you know, pe people they care
hmm,
more if their phone is about to run out of battery rather than themselves. You know,
yeah,
like honestly,
yeah,
they go, oh, I can't
right.
believe it, my phone's nearly gone, you know, whereas they're exhausted, about to
Exactly.
collapse.
Exactly. Where's my remote battery pack already?
Yeah.
Um, what does good data look like?
Uh, Good data is
You talked
um,
about, yeah.
very thoughtful, by the way, in terms of how you actually hierarchy the organization and decide what the reporting needs to be
Hmm.
so that it's meaningful.
Hmm.
It kills me when I see organizations and I ask them about the data they have, and I see them looking at kind of averages.
Hmm.
And it frustrates me because averages, you know, the classic story, Michael, about averages that, like, you know, how on average how many legs does a human being have, you know? And
Two,
well, you'd imagine, right? But I mean, you have seen one-legged people, haven't you?
I have
Unfortunately, yeah. But have you ever seen a three-legged person?
never.
No. So
No.
therefore, the average is probably 1.99. So um, averages hide the reality. And what I'm really passionate about is giving an average for the organization. It's pretty meaningless. But if you
Hmm.
let me drill down into your division, department, team,
Hmm.
all the way down so that I know exactly what's happening. Because
Get
the issue that
granular.
you face in Singapore versus the issue you face in Bangladesh is
Hmm.
completely different.
Hmm.
And if you're doing a generic approach to this, you're going to get it all wrong. The other
Yes.
thing, by the way, is speed. And people, you know, kind of they gather data and they go through, you know, quite an enormous process in terms of doing it. And then they just sit on that data. And you know, the
Mm.
classic thing is people go, oh, the survey fatigue.
Yes.
There's no survey fatigue. That doesn't exist. That's absolute rubbish. What there is inaction fatigue. So I'm not going to bother giving you answers or
Right.
my opinion or my thoughts because what's the point? You're going to do nothing with it. I'll
Yes.
maybe, if I'm lucky, get a summary in 3 months' time. Good luck. That's like
Right.
the world we live in. You know, the people who are coming into the workplace now, they're used to responses straight away. They
Hmm.
want to know
Right.
right now. They're not they're
Right.
not interested in waiting. The
Right.
world has really got an awful lot faster.
Yep.
So organizations need to get an awful lot faster and bring that pace so that it's meaningful, the
Yeah.
data that you're actually getting back. But being able to drill down and really analyze it and get the
Hmm.
truth behind that data and the truth fast and then action it even faster. That's what's really important.
And then doing that will help to drive performance. That's part of your thought process around this.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
But it does, Michael, and that's the thing because we're not sort of saying it might, it's a theory. What
Yeah.
we're actually seeing on the ground is a massive transformation in organizations all over the globe. And
Hmm.
it's interesting to see how, like, for example, you know, Dubai Police.
Hmm.
I thought that was really interesting because one of the things we know is that fitness is really important. And it's one of our lowest benchmarked statements. Most people say that they're not fit. Okay.
Hmm.
And you sort of say, so why would you
Yeah.
say most people say they're not fit out of interest?
Lack of exercise.
Yes, but
Yes.
why are they not exercising?
I don't have time.
There you go. The number one, I don't
Uh-huh.
have the time. So
Hmm.
basically, everybody has decided to prioritize lots of other things other than their own health and fitness.
Hmm.
And I say to them, listen, if you're not interested in prioritizing your own health and fitness, why don't you think about the people who are going to have to look after you when you get sick?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about those people, right? So anyway, we know that if you're fit, you have energy and you can perform, right?
Right.
And the Dubai police know this too. Now they have the best gym I've ever seen in my life,
I bet.
okay? But um, uh, they introduced gym walls. And I'm kind of going, what's a gym wall? And they're
Yeah.
sort of saying, well, listen, if people don't want to go through the big, because some people don't like going to the gym route, the big
Hmm.
gym, all
Hmm.
the, preparing, the gear bag, all of that. So they've introduced these little tiny mini gyms in the corner of the department. You simply get up off your table, little nudge, you go over there, you lift a few weights, you put out a yoga mat, you do some stretching, you do some,
Oh,
constrained exercise. It works. You do that 3 times a day. It's great. Okay,
yeah.
so what that word I want you to take away is integration. So no longer is it a case that you go, oh, I hope my people are
Uh,
getting fit on their own time. What you actually say is, I know how important it is for my people to be fit and healthy and well because I want them turning up to
yeah.
work at the best every day. I need to actually integrate this, make it easy for them. We were in Korea and an organization over there. They said to me, John, we don't have a gym in our workplace. I said that's absolutely fine. And they said, no, 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 don't get us wrong. We have a workplace in our gym.
Mm.
You're going to have to explain that to me. And they showed me that they have a swimming pool, they have horse riding stables, and everywhere you go in this workplace, they have treadmills, they have, the baseball or basketball hoops.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
it's nearly impossible to walk by one of those things without picking up a ball. At least you
Right.
get people
Right.
moving
Yep.
and the like. So it's the whole philosophy. A company in Denmark there, just everybody
Huh.
cycles. There's bikes all over the place. It's so when you walk into that culture, it's actually really difficult not to turn around. And that's one of the other statements we have is not only are you fit, but is there a culture of fitness
Mm.
within the
Mm.
organization?
Hmm.
Because if there
Hmm.
is, it's more likely that you're going to do that
Do it
too.
as well.
If
Right.
there's a culture of bullying, you're probably more likely to fall into that
Yeah.
too. Okay, so it's really important that there's certain things that it's really important that you say, we've got to drive purpose, alignment, coherence. We've
Yep.
got to drive fitness and physical in all
Yep.
aspects. We've got to drive mental fitness. Another area that I think is completely, slightly abused in terms of what people are talking about there, but also social connections. And this is one of the biggest things with people in this, you know, world where they're working from remote locations and they're not coming to the one place. It's
Hmm.
under pressure. And
Mm.
you really have to sort of balance this and try and make sure that the workplace is attracting people to come in there, that you're not doing the exact same thing you'd be able to do at home, but
Yep.
you're doing something slightly different in a different way
Huh.
in a different environment.
So interesting. So here's one last question for you. What's a question that I haven't asked you yet?
Oh,
As you think about this issue around performance, right? And that most organizations have gotten the wrong way around. And that it's, kind of well-being, um, if it's not dead, it probably should die. For us to reframe what we mean and be more attentive to performance and what are the conditions and factors that drive performance and being super focused and attentive to that. So, what if I not asked you that you're like, you know what? Your listeners should know this.
Michael, I think you're a brilliant interviewer, so I wouldn't insult you by saying that you've left out something crucially important. However, however, the one thing I will say, AI is obviously this force to be reckoned with.
Yes.
Obviously, yes, it'll bring loads of good stuff, but unfortunately, it's going to demolish an awful lot of jobs all over the world. And the people will tell us,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they'll be replaced by other kind of roles and jobs. I'm just not seeing that to the
Mm-hmm.
level, and I think that's going to be a problem. But what we're told, certain people say, yeah, 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 there will be job displacement, and there will be people who'll be left behind. But listen,
Yeah.
we'll introduce a basic income so that we'll pay these people. Now, that's a massive misunderstanding
Mm.
of what work is. Work isn't just a thing we do or a place we go. It's
Yeah.
actually our
Yeah.
identity,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
that idea of me being able to go to a workplace, utilize my skills and talents, and actually really deliver on my purpose and my meaning and get that sort of passion for
Yes.
doing something and contributing something that's really fantastic. If I can do that in an environment that I'm actually appreciated, that
Yeah.
I link in with other people and build social connections and maybe have, friends for the rest of my life through my work, or
Mhm.
maybe meet my partner for the rest of my life. So the workplace is so important. If
Yes.
it's a place that I can learn and grow and develop and hone my skills, see brilliant leadership and operation in part of been part of something that's special,
Yep.
that's delivering hopefully not only profit so that I can live my life and do well, but if it's doing something that matters for society, even better. So this
Mhm.
idea that, work is just money, that's not right. That's
Yeah.
not. And this idea of EVP, a contract, what's the deal between you and me?
Yes.
You'll pay me, I'll do that. Honestly, we've moved way beyond that. And people have to understand work isn't a place I go or a thing I do.
Mm.
Work is internally part of me and
Yeah.
it's an expression of what I'm brilliant at. So when I perform, I feel brilliant. I feel healthy. I feel well.
That goes right back to where we started, right? Around kind of flow and coherence, and that drives performance. And for CEOs to be attentive to that. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. John, thank you for your time today. As always, it's always a pleasure to kind of learn from you and think about kind of how do organizations create thriving, high-performing workplaces. And I think you got part of the answer right there. So
It's all
cool.
about creating a healthy place to work.
Thanks, John.
Oh, you forgot to record.
No, I